Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It is Friday night, and you are listening to Paranormal Review Radio, the only radio show without commercials and with more great paranormal talk. I'm Anthony Agati in New York.
And I'm Lucy Liebfried in Chicago. Are you ready for another Paranormal Friday night? We are so happy that you can join us. We welcome all of our regular listeners and those of you who have tuned in for the very first time. Now, if you have a question for our guest or about the topic tonight, feel free to ask us in the chat room or call into the show at 661-244-9831. We will try to get to you as soon as we can. Don't forget, you can always send us an email with future topics that you'd like to see on the show, or if you just want to say hi. Our email address is paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com. And last but not least, check us out on our Facebook show page and our YouTube channel for more information on the paranormal and upcoming shows.
You know, there are many people that come and go in our lives, whether it be on television, history, or next door, that make a significant impact on the world. Okay, no, I'm not talking about Thomas Jefferson or Albert Einstein. I'm talking about a man who has managed to live through abusive ghost attacks as a young child, then to be bullied throughout his adolescence, form a true paranormal research team as a young adult, fight a debilitating disease, come out to the world about his sexuality, and all the while produce a paranormal television show unraveling the secrets of the afterlife and beyond. It is undeniable. This one man has made a difference that it cannot be measured for me, you, and millions of other people. Lucy and I are extremely excited to announce our guest tonight, Ryan Buell. Ryan, for those of you who have been living under a rock, is a paranormal investigator, author, and producer of the infamous and groundbreaking show Paranormal State. At the current age of 32, Ryan has managed not only to change the scope of how we look at the paranormal, but the way that we look at life as well. But his adventure is far from complete. There are new ideas and ventures in store for this remarkable human being. It is with great honor and excitement that we introduce and welcome Ryan Buell to the show. Hi, Ryan. It is a pleasure to have you on the show tonight. How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm hanging in there. How about you guys?
Doing great.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us tonight. You know, I want to get right into it. Can we begin when you were a child? You know, I watched your documentary, American Ghost Hunter, and in one particular scene that was so heart-wrenching was when you were describing the story about your attacks in your bedroom from spirits and how your mom was reacting to it. I think it's so important that parents hear this story.
Sure. Well, I've never fully given out the complete details of my experience. I always lived by, or I've always kind of felt the philosophy of, you know, tell when it's relevant. And the times that I have opened up were moments where I felt it was necessary. You know, obviously that's one of the biggest questions that I get asked a lot. And, you know, if I wanted to cash in on it, of course I would have included it in a tell-all book or Lifetime made-for-TV movie. And at one point there was an offer to do something like that, and I just said, you know, no, because there's just some things that I, you know, believe it or not, I'm very private about. And I know that may sound weird, you know, since I did a TV show, but many people may not know that it took us 3 or 4 years before we even agreed to do one, and I never had any interest in being on camera. It was the last thing on my mind. But when I told those stories, here are these clients who were sharing their experiences, and it started to grow in my mind and how selfish it was for me to not really talk much about my own experiences. And to this day, only a handful of people really know what I truly went through. And I gave a little sliver, I would say maybe not even 5%. But my mom actually hates it when I tell the story because she's like, Ryan, you make me sound like a abusive mother. And I said, no, it's, because I mentioned how, she spanked me. And I'm like, how I was having these traumatic experiences, and she came in there and just let me, but it was a stressful time. And, not a week goes by that I don't, I should scratch that. It's different now, but for many, many years, it was a weekly thing that I would revisit about, what was going on. And trust me, when people have read the book or they've met me, they say, wow, Ryan, I didn't know how much of a skeptic you really were, because the show kind of makes you look like you believe in anything. And I can't tell if that's a backhanded compliment or what, but I'm just happy that, people understand that there's some openness. But what I'm trying to get at is that I've evaluated over and over, almost psychoanalyzed myself to death over what had happened. But the memory was so real. To this day, one of the experiences that I share that you brought up was when the phenomena started. It had started for a while. I'd say it had been less than a year. And it takes a while for things to take shape. And anyone who's gone through a major haunting, even if you watch movies that are based on real cases, they don't happen they don't all spill out in a couple of days. It's almost like a self-realization before all the pieces unravel, and then many more years to reflect on it. And I saw, something, come into my doorway, and this was just the beginning of my experiences. My stepfather was in the first Gulf War. It was just myself, my younger brother, and my mother, and we were in the South. It was a complete culture shock. And I started hearing whispers in my room. At one point, I swore my baby brother got in bed with me. I had a bunk bed. I heard a countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And I just said, Jordan, go back to your room. I looked down, and there was no one there. And then my closet doors would start to open. And, of course, whenever I tell a story, people are like, it's interesting that there's something in your closet. And I've since revealed that I'm bisexual, and they were like, you sure you weren't kind of projecting? But who knows? But there's this figure, this being that, it only took that shape twice. And if I were to try to make sense, I've since learned that trying to make sense of it is like trying to make sense of the universe and God. You'll go mad. You just have to accept. And whatever it was, the grin was the most defining feature. It was inhuman. And when I started working with the Vatican and the Catholic and various different dioceses to actually assess for real, I shouldn't say real, but for officially sanctioned exorcisms approved by the church, a lot of the stories started to sound very similar. And, a lot of the work I did, I won't lie, was really about, my own selfish needs to come to some sort of self-realization. Every time I would take a case, I would connect the dots. I started to realize that in the back of my head, I was, in a way, collecting information and then comparing it to my own and going, oh, my God, I had that experience. And, one of the things I'm proudest of in the show is how I've had a lot of mothers, reach out and say that they don't know what to do when their child is experiencing things. And we had an amazing counselor the first season named Jamie. And, you know, she was a believer, but her full-time job is not counseling paranormal clients. But, you know, I've tried to argue, and I have, to skeptics, that whether or not we believe in the paranormal is irrelevant. Every culture, every different socioeconomic class have, you know, so many threads of similarities that tie us all together of these experiences. And, you know, my mom didn't know how to deal with that. It was not mainstream. We had heard about Ed and Lorraine Warren, but, you know, that was something far, far away, and everyone always imagines that doesn't happen in your neighborhood. And so, of course, my mom would think it was just overactive imagination. What normal mother would stop to say, oh, is it really a ghost?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Paranormal State seemed to be more focused on people and their voices and their actual experience rather than the investigation. Did this have to do with getting validation of the experiences?
Kind of. I mean, you know, to be honest, what I was very proud about was how authentic our investigations were. You know, I couldn't control how it was edited. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, you know, nowadays, I'm very grateful that there are shows out there that try to show some of the truth of what goes on. But I try to remind people, you know, that we would do a 3-4 day investigation, not including the pre-prep work that would go on for sometimes weeks or months, or always weeks, but sometimes months before we would actually get in there, and then afterwards. And here it is being chiseled down to 22 minutes. But, you know, with Paranormal State, they followed our approach to it, which was we went in there, we very much had it, you know, client-based. My earlier investigations were a lot more selfish. I was very angry at the world, and in some way maybe I still am. And, you know, I was looking for answers. But one of my first cases, client-based cases, that I started to realize, you know, this isn't just about me. This is about so many other people. And at least I could identify. We've all heard, every investigator's heard the term from a client. You're going to think I'm crazy, but ... Right. And, you know, we know we're here to believe you. And so, you know, I was very happy with that. One, we were very private. The earlier concepts for the show was college students who are also Ghostbusters. They drink. They have sex. You know, what parties are they going to go to? And then they investigate. But if you watch the first season, you kind of see a little bit of that. There was one episode where the girls are all sitting around giggling almost to Sergi, being like, would you ever date someone in PRS? And you're all like, oh, my God. And, you know, but that quickly kind of went out because we were private. We didn't want that. And I think they also got to. They sensed that we were very serious. And so, and they quickly realized that, yeah, we may be young, but we take our work very seriously. So, yeah, it didn't take long for the show to get on board with just really following what we did, which was to try to help. I wanted to get evidence, and we did, and that is a whole different side of PRS. It may not have been showcased in the show all the time, but we always had experts. We always had psychologists. We had all kinds of different experts, and we'd have like 5 or 6 sometimes, and maybe 1 or 2 would get in. So, yeah, we'd analyze evidence, but we did kind of start to become therapists in a way, and that was really due to the need. When we went in there, people weren't asking us to validate, do we have a ghost or not? When their furniture and shit is levitating and moving across. They don't need a certificate to say, yep, right, your place is haunted. You know, some bed and breakfasts and stuff, yeah, they would like that. But these people, they weren't looking for TV or fame. They were looking for help. So that quickly became kind of, that kind of became a realization that we learned very early, and we had to do something about that.
I know people are wondering how you're feeling and how you're dealing with this medical fight. Are you able to give everyone an update on your health?
Sure. Well, as some people may know, I've been fighting a form of cancer for over a year now. I wish, it's funny, I was just giving an interview with People magazine about this, and it was so nerve-wracking, and to go and relive it. And believe it or not, I was actually extraordinarily nervous about doing this interview. And Sergey was like, "You've given a lot of these." And I said, "Yeah, but things are different. I've become a hermit. I really have not been involved in much at all."
You've done a lot of soul searching, right?
I have. It's when I was investigating the paranormal, we were trying to answer questions about what happens to us when we die. But now here I was, and still am, now making peace with the fact that I may very well die, any year now. When it first happened, we didn't know if I was going to live past 6 months. I was very sick. A lot of what I had to go through was trying to make peace with death. And of course, this happened right as as at the end of my 20s. And granted, we all have one guarantee in life: we die.
Right.
But no one really expects it, and this, in a lot of ways, is a slow one. It's a slow death. You battle and fight as hard as you can, and if you're lucky, you make it out. Some, they do, and granted, there's no defeat in death, but, so a lot of the battle was psychological. I'm able to do things now that I haven't been able to do for a while. Like I'm able to go out for a little bit. This summer I took a couple trips for business, but, when I went to New York City a month ago, I can only be out for a few hours. I'm exhausted. And anyone who knows me knows that is not me. I'm all over the place. At one point I was exec producing 2 shows, a movie, was working on a fictional property. We were doing stuff with big-name people, and it all had to get dropped suddenly because of this. So, physically, yeah, some days I feel great, and then other days I'm on the couch. So, of course, it's affected, my life. And obviously I've had some other ailments, so I'm, bound to a cane now for possibly the rest of my life. But, after a while you start to look at it and go, I can't control what's happened, but I can be thankful for what I'm doing now. So I've made improvements, but it will probably be years before there's any way to say for certainty whether or not I am better, so to speak. Steve Jobs battled this for, I think, 9 years. The guy from Ghost, Patrick Swayze,
right.
He did it for a few years. He really pushed himself to keep working while doing it. Some people think that was his demise. So for me, I didn't really have a choice. Every time I'd stand up, I'd get knocked down. So there was a lot of defeat. So psychologically, that's the hardest. And like I just mentioned, being a hermit, things that otherwise I wouldn't even think twice about, like speaking, now suddenly is an exercise. But it all comes with the territory. I always tell people there's way worse out there in life. It's not an instant death sentence. There are plenty of people who are survivors. I wish I could change, the cards that have been dealt, but we don't control that.
Do you think that maybe not being in the paranormal for all the years that you've been in the field, may have a different mindset now in regards to your medical condition. Do you think that maybe the paranormal, possibly, and it may sound weird, may have helped you cope with things, if that makes sense to you?
Maybe. I mean, I met people who've become friends who had their heads on their shoulders way more than I did. I mean, I was very destructive and angry for a while, especially in the first, I'd say, 6-8 months. I've kind of had been given the role as kind of leader of the family. I was the first to go to college, making, so many great, tremendous steps and milestones, and the future just kept looking brighter and brighter. With the paranormal, you'd think so, but I will tell you that, I don't know, I became angrier. I became, I almost had a bit of a sense of entitlement, like, I've been doing all of this. Why this?
Right.
I've just been hit by a car, or, saved a kid from a burning fire, instead of this slow death and watching everything, or my perception is of watching everything deteriorate around me, which isn't very true, but, it has, the paranormal is so complex, and faith is very simple. It's accepting loss, it's accepting death, it's understanding that there's no guarantees, God giving you everything, and I'm speaking to all religions, even people who are agnostic or just spiritual, God or gods, the universe, whatever you want to call it, if it gave us everything we wanted, that wouldn't really be faith. And so, dealing with the paranormal, it seemed to make things more complex for me in trying to understand what was going on, because maybe it's because I think a lot, but it didn't make things easier, I don't think. But then again, I don't know if, had I not, maybe things would have been simpler, because for me, I thought about all my cases, the dark work, the light work, the in-between, and, I've gotten I've had the question asked to me, which at one point angered me, but now I've understood its relevance, which is, Ryan, do you think your work with the church or with the demonic had anything to do with this? And, if it did, what can I do about it? I can't sit there and fear every single thing, because, if some force out there had the power to give me this and other things as punishment, then clearly it can do more.
Right.
And if there's a dark side, there's clearly a light. So it may sound like a cheesy answer, but there's a purpose to everything. And it's taken me some time to understand that. So,
well, talking about the brighter side of things, I've heard people call you an icon, a true researcher, the real deal. Pretend you're not so humble. Do you agree with these titles, or what do you think makes up Ryan Buell?
Well, some of my detractors would say I am not so humble anyways, but I don't know. It depends. Sometimes I would say stubbornness. Well, I think I'm stubborn all around. But I would like to think of it as just being determined. And,
right.
What's funny is when you're public, people will hang you and crucify you for your mistakes. But, my God, I sometimes try to say to them, imagine if your life was scrutinized, and fair game for punchlines. I do have a passion. I can't spend time fighting people who don't believe that. The ones who say I'm a sellout or this or that. Every great, person out there, even from like presidents down to other researchers, have had their detractors. For me, I would say, if I do something, it's because I believe in it. I would, one of my business partners and best friends, Chad Kalick, which he directed some of the episodes and was in it, and we have a movie that we did together. He always said, you're not so much a diplomat as you are more of a, what's the term? And it escapes me right now. Idealist, and I think that's true. I think I am an idealist. I have this bold vision. I really wanted to bring a whole, I don't say a new perspective, but I really wanted. I have literally made paranormal research my life's work, and it is not something I wanted to be, but it is my life's work, and I haven't always been great at it. A lot of people have watched me, and still are watching me, go from a college student to now in my early 30s. People sometimes need to stop and think, yeah, I was a kid when I started this technically, and now I'm just in my early 30s. So what makes me who I am, stubborn, idealist, driven, at the same time, I make a lot of mistakes. But there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about them. So I would say that I'm also, I don't know, just as I'm driven, I also have guilt in me every step of the way too, of trying to make sure I do things. So my mom, I think, raised me very well in the sense of trying to be real. I also say I'm private, but I don't ever try to bullshit people as best as I can. Coming from a journalistic background, I don't believe in just fluff, when I do interviews.
Right.
I want to try to give the truth as best as I can, too. Some people call me polarizing. People call me authentic, asshole, dictator. It's all the above. I don't know. I guess
you're human.
People have to judge. I am human.
Lucy, are you there? I think we lost Lucy.
I bored her that badly. Jeez, I'm sorry.
Well, I just read your book, Paranormal State: My Journey into the Unknown, and I can say you are an icon. But what was interesting in the book was that you told us that you got into the paranormal for purely selfish reasons, and I think you actually just talked about that before. You wanted to find answers for yourself. I think that's why most people get into the paranormal. But in the book, I saw the opposite. I wanted to mention this before to you when you were talking about that, how you got into the paranormal for selfish reasons. But in the book, it was sort of the opposite. We saw you as the teacher, someone who's willing to help others find the answers. Have you found the answers that you were first looking for?
No, actually. Well, the answers surprise you. People really are looking for some sort of complex answer. When people ask me questions, anything from how do you get published, or how do you get a TV show, to how do you become an investigator, to how do you overcome this problem. Sometimes it's the simplest explanation. Be noticed, be authentic, have something, give something to the world that they need, there are many people out there who are carbon copies, but then when it comes to the paranormal, I look to the past. I very much, when I was a kid, I remember looking up to Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I didn't care how polarizing they were. I thought, their take on things was amazing. I never wanted to be a teacher. I wanted someone to teach me desperately. I wanted to join a society. I wanted to join a team, but no one would take on a 15, 16, 19-year-old. I never wanted to be a leader. So I think I've been trying to find the answers on my own, which has at times been very lonely. I've had to hold a lot of this together. Sometimes it feels this way on my own. The best thing I can tell people is that when it comes to answers like my own, the questions about myself, I didn't discover some smoking gun that explains it all. Am I just schizophrenic? Is it a demon? Was I haunted because of this family lineage tie, and here's all the dots, or the numerology all added up, and this is why? Or, the nature of the unknown is to remain unknown. So, the answers that I have to this date discovered is really an acceptance of understanding that you won't ever really know. Sometimes you feel like it. Literally, I've been content with so many different possibilities. Maybe I was given this life-changing experience so I can do this. But then again, that was also my choice in a way. Not to be a teacher, but, to pursue it this way. Maybe, I experienced these things to provide comfort to someone. Maybe someone I have crossed paths with will become a way better teacher or pioneer than I will ever be. I've just, at least as of right now, ask me a year from now, I might have a different answer, but as of right now, I just accept, what's been given and accepting and embracing the unknown, the mystery of faith, the mystery of life, and in a way that's kind of exciting.
I think Lucy is still gone. Lucy, are you there? All right.
Hello?
Are you there, Lucy? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. Ryan, you know what? You're talking about the acceptance. And the one thing that I have been curious about is the acceptance of the unknown. Has that gotten stronger since you've been through your medical issues?
I'm sorry?
Has the acceptance of the unknown, is it stronger now that you've been through what you've been through?
I don't know. I don't know because it hasn't been put through any tests. I've been consulting. That's about as best as I can do. Mm-hmm. I've done a little bit of investigating here and there, but I've had to pass it on. We're now in development to return the TV, and I won't lie, I'm a little scared because, I asked myself, what if I'm not ready? I don't know if anything could make me prepared or accepted. I guess in one aspect, yes, because I have so many unanswered questions, and I've also learned that nobody can give them to me. I've had people stop me at events and say, you were given this for a purpose, or, I'm psychic and I was told this, and that's all fine, but I have to figure that out for myself in the end. And even though everyone plays a part, even me talking now could very well be a life-altering moment. Right now, you never know. A question. Some of the things that I remember and recall that have built me as to who I am were the people who passed by, and sometimes made one time I was working at Red Lobster, I was in a complete pull as to where I wanted to go to university, and this guy just stopped me while I was bussing tables and talked to me for 5 minutes, and I've never stopped thinking about him and the advice he gave and the confidence. And then when it comes to this, I know that Paranormal State investigations have brought people into my life that I would never have met. I make no secret that I've been very angry with the Catholic Church at times, but I've never left it. And I've found a couple priests who have become life friends and my confessors in a way, who have tried to, counsel me through all this. So yes, I do definitely appreciate the unknown because there's so many damn unanswered questions, but I wouldn't say I'm always at peace with it. There are times.
Well, you know what? One of the things that you mentioned in the book was how in the beginning you overlooked things, that you overlooked the more obvious natural explanations, that you wanted to believe that there was something so badly that you were easily convinced. Do
Sure.
you feel that this is the case with the paranormal community now? I mean, do we want to believe so badly that we're really overlooking the truth of what things can be?
Absolutely. And that's not a slight to anybody. When I started training new investigators, which we just started the process of doing again, which has been really reinvigorating, one of the things we do after they go through their, I guess, academic, so to speak, training, they get assigned a case. Almost like a residence doctor who, has to come in under supervision of another doctor for training and talk to the patient, give his assessment that's overlooked by another doctor. Mm-hmm. Almost always the new investigators would be gung-ho about that case and go, this has to be paranormal. It is paranormal. And I would say, well, did you look at the psychological comments, this assessment? Did you look at how this story and that story? And they wanted to believe so badly. And, nowadays, I get people all the time who come up to me at events and they just did their ghost hunt, or they do a ghost hunt with us, or they watched the show and they're like, oh, and they show me pictures of orbs. Which, at one point I roll my eyes and go, God, I thought we were over that. That was like 1999. But, whenever I see someone, I can always kind of, and maybe this is presumptuous, but I can kind of see where they're at, because no matter how much advice we give, when we tell those people, listen, orbs is mainly a phenomenon that's happening with digital cameras and the technology and the improvements of, photography. There's a reason why the orb phenomenon was not there in the 50s or 60s. It's a more recent kind of subject. And then they look at you like you just crushed their world.
Right.
And, or demonic cases, suddenly, when people get in and some client says the demon, they're like, oh my God, Ryan, we need your help at church and blah, blah, blah. And, and I'm sitting there going, look, this woman just needs counseling. Not to say it's not paranormal, but I always have the mantra, you never ever know. Even if you can explain all away their experiences, you never truly know. And I apologize about that loud motorcycle that just passed by. So, it takes some time, I think, for people to get experience. I was duped a few times. I've had clients lie to me, but I don't think they're lying all the way. And sometimes I have, novice investigators who say, oh, this client, they're full of shit. They lied about this or that. And I say, well, no. We all lie. That doesn't mean everything is gone. Look at everything else. Sometimes they want to be believed so badly that they don't want to disappoint. So sometimes they will lie and exaggerate because nothing's happening. So it's those little things. And they may not believe me right then and there, but maybe when it finally clicks. So, and just for the record, I still want to believe. And I still get duped. I still make bad judgment calls. So the one advice I have is don't think you're too hot and too great to think that you know everything. There are people who are on TV who, quite honestly, had never investigated before. And there are those who've been investigating for 20, 30, 40 years, and I've also debated with them sometimes and found that some of their beliefs are very, amateurish. And then there have been times where I've been schooled, and I've been, oh, yeah, now that I have more experience, I totally see that. So we're all children in this.
Well, on that topic, I mean, you've been in the field for a long time now, and you've been around a lot of, people within the paranormal community. How do you view the way the field is being perceived by, first, the people inside the community, and then second, the people or the groups that are outside the community, like the media and social sites?
Well, a lot of times I've just sat back and watched, and there's always been something. There's always been infighting. There's always the super crazy people. And granted, I haven't been around as long as Lorraine or some other people, or even Jason Hawes and TAPS, some of the older TAPS founders, but there's always that, just as there's always political bantering that's been around since our country was founded. I actually am excited because I can focus on the negatives all day long about these people who bash or they fight. Or God, I honestly do think Facebook is just, everyone needs to just get off Facebook and enjoy their life. But at the same time, there's always going to be something that's negative. I'm actually excited. Yes, there are shows out there that are a little embarrassing, but there always have been.
Right.
I'm actually excited because I think we are going through a renaissance. I think we were going through a rebirth. I'm starting to see some things stick. Before, 2000, there really weren't that many people who had been around for a while. A few that kind of were still there, to usher in this new era of the digital age and connectivity. But now there have been people who have been around since that time who now been 15 years. And, there are new leaders out there. And and there's new pioneers coming up. I think that we're going through a phase where we're going to be a bit more scientific, a bit more, we're bringing a bit more of that parapsychology back. Some of the stuff that we're doing now is very much leaning more towards the scientific psi research. There are established groups now that have been around for a while, but when I first did Paranormal State, a lot of groups that contacted me, they just started. And some of the older groups have been disbanded, but I think the message that I think is most important is that people really need to learn to work together and put aside their egos. And that's the most important one. When I see, I'm not really involved in it a lot, but when I sit there and see people do nothing but just fight, and we see that in our own fan base, and you're like, when are we going to start talking about the paranormal?
Right.
So, but that's with every group. That's with every single faction or special interest group out there that I've seen.
Well, Ryan, if you never found that initial courage to form the group at Penn State or to build that fire and passion that you have for seeking out the truth in the paranormal, where do you feel that the road would have taken you?
Who knows? I very much had a passion for journalism. I'm still doing that. I freelance. I did stuff for the Huffington Post, the NPR. I'm returning to do some of that. I was covering the Sandusky Penn State scandal. I'm doing some gay rights special interest stories, and also some other inspiring stories as well. I think I would have had more time to pursue my writing, and I probably would have entered the filmmaking field in a different way. But you know what? I think it all would have come back. It's so hard because I think for me to not have had my experiences, that would make me so different. Maybe I'd be, maybe I would have joined a fraternity at Penn State as opposed to starting PRS. But that makes me who I am so much. I think it was always meant to be this way.
Well, in your opinion, what does it mean to believe in a spirit or an afterlife?
I think it makes us human. I think that it means that we're searching, that we're questioning what's around us. I think it's silly to not question, especially having to go through all the medical stuff I've had to go through. I can tell you right now, doctors are just as human and just as stupid. I've wanted to take a few hits out on doctors from time to time. Famous psychologists, other, esteemed journalists and professors. We're all human. But those who honestly are searching for the paranormal, especially those who are taking the time to look through it in the lens that we are, I think we're a bit more aware of our soul. Even if you call yourself an agnostic and, I'm a parapsychologist, I don't believe in a God, but I do believe that we survive on the way. You're still searching for the same thing. I think we're more aware of our souls, which makes things sometimes complicated.
Well, talking about searching for the answers, to be perfectly honest with you and everyone listening, I'm still struggling with the questions of what religion is and what is God. I know you grew up Catholic like I did. How much has religion influenced the way that you perceive the paranormal? And do you find yourself asking the same questions about religion and God now as much, with all the information that you know about the paranormal? Are you still questioning religion and God?
Oh, absolutely. I think anyone who's into the paranormal is ultimately looking for God. No question about it. It doesn't... when people say that's not it, who's going to admit they're insecure? Who's going to admit that they're full of crap? Who's going to admit that, they're on... Did Hitler believe he was on the wrong side? And please, I'm not trying to compare paranormal investigators to Hitler. I'm just trying to say that, a lot of us sometimes aren't... It takes us a while to realize what it is we're searching for, and I think that is the end game. It's not about getting the answers of what we're searching for. I think it's the realization of, what have I been searching for? We go around, are there ghosts? Are there ghosts? Are there demons? And we're never going to get those answers, but at one point we're going to stop and look and go, well, why was I looking for those answers? Why did I feel a pull to investigate demons? Why did I feel a pull to pursue my psychic gifts? I think that is, I think if we're wiser a bit, I think that is ultimately at the end of our age, or whenever. I think that's one thing that we start to think about. I'm Catholic, but one of my dearest and best friends, Elfie, is pagan, and I believe we have the same God. I do not believe that to believe in one religion means all others are irrelevant. I think Islam, Judaism, Christianity, all denominations, paganism, Wicca, Buddha, Taoism, all that, it's all the same thing. Maybe if there is one conscious God out there, I think he, she, it would want to reach as many people as possible. So Buddha and Jesus may have been the same person, so to speak. I do not believe that because I'm Catholic, Muslims are sadly mistaken, or pagans, they're sweet, but they're going to hell. I don't believe that at all, because I think the moment I believe that would make me the stupidest person on earth.
Well, I mentioned in my intro that there are new ideas and ventures coming up for you, and a little birdie told me, actually it was on your Facebook post, that there may be a new televised show in the works. You have everyone on the edge of their seats. will there be a new show coming out with you in the group, or is there something new that you're going to bring to our living room tubes?
Yeah. Had I not been sick, it would have come out much sooner. The biggest thing I was told is, focus on your health. Focus on your health. And
right.
As much as I need to do that, I've also been very antsy. I can tell you that we are returning, and we have something up our sleeve. It's something that is now a daily. It's something that we're working on daily. So in other words, it's more than just a hope. It's actually something that we are working on, and I am 99.999% positive that you'll see us on the TV screen in 2014. And the only reason why I'm not 100% positive is because I'm not the one in charge
right.
of the release date. I mean, when we did Paranormal State, we started filming November 2006. The show aired December 2007, so it was 13 months later. So,
wow.
So anyways, the point is that 2014 is going to be the return of Scariest TV. I wish I could say more details about that, but unfortunately, it's not just my decision, but it's extremely, extremely exciting what we are doing. Some of the new people who are involved in it. There will be some returning faces. But, Scariest has changed. It's evolving. So, yeah, not only that, but we're also looking at film. So, of course, I mentioned, I have a new book coming out next year and stuff like that. But the big thing is that, we are in the early stages of the new show project. And then we are taking many meetings and negotiating with some very, very, very well-known people for some sort of film project, very similar to The Conjuring with the Warrens, where it's, I can't really say much about what it'll be about, but it was hinted upon a little bit in this interview. And one day when it comes out, I think you guys will, understand what I mean by that.
Which sounds exciting.
Yeah,
Ryan,
I'm excited.
Well, are you up for taking a question from one of the listeners?
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to go to area code 701. Hi, you're on the air with Lucy, Anthony, and Ryan. Who is this? Hello? Hi.
Hi.
Hi. You have a question for Ryan?
Oh, yeah, I do. I just wanted to ask him if, I think one of the great reasons, too, you're on this earth is you've helped so many people over and over. I guess I want to know, too, did you find closure with, shall we say the demon that had bothered you so much? Is it still happening, or is there some closure there that you've been able to?
Well, I've done different cases. Some that were touched upon in the show that happened before the TV show. I would say that there's enough closure that can be done for the time period. I mean, if I live another 50 years, I can't speak for that. Unfortunately, you never know what might happen tomorrow. But right now, yeah, that is not something that's on my mind. I actually got some of that closure while doing the show and finding people who are much more spiritual than I, and authentically, I might add, to help bring that closure. But it was actually a lot of the clients that helped me find that closure.
Well, Ryan, I want to touch a little bit on demonic activity and possession. You've had your share of bouts in the field with demonic or evil entities, and you even resorted to getting help from Lorraine Warren and members of the clergy for help. And we've talked to many people in the clergy about this, including Bishop James Long, and all have said that the demonic activity is really very rare. What are your thoughts on negative or demonic spirit cases, and how should paranormal groups treat them?
Well, no one knows for certainty. I mean, when a client claims that they are being haunted by a demon, I can't sit there and tell them, I'm sorry, it's not. I look at it as almost a cultural belief. So I say, well, look, if it is a demon, here's what you can do. And I do genuinely believe that there are some, I would say, it's much more potent. But if there is such thing as a demon, which they are in this world but not of this world, and they don't, and clearly, therefore, they do not abide by the same laws of physics that we know of. It's not to say they're not involved in every single aspect. Like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, there's a god or an angel in us and then a devil in us. So I think it's safe to say that you can look at it as being involved in every aspect. When I go into a case, who's not to say that, if that's not on my mind, that's not something that is there. I think the problem is a lot of people look at it in a literal sense. And there's also a lot of people out there who throw around titles, calling themselves exorcists or demonologists or whatever. And granted, who's to say that, Catholics are the only ones, but I do know that they have a much more rigorous structure. They're way more organized. When I work with the diocese and I work with the bishops of those dioceses, that's been passed down since, the formal rite of exorcism since the 1600s and going way back. I think it's dangerous for us to try to make a definitive statement on something that, let's just be honest, we do not know. And I don't think there's any weakness in saying we just don't know. I argue even with my priest associates, sometimes, that, and the ones I work with are amazing, that we consult with. And some I do not get along with whatsoever, but we do the work anyways. Some absolutely believe, by the book, this is what a demon is, or they stand by the Catholic structure of how to define if a case is demonic or not. I would say that the perception that people think of a demon is rare, absolutely, like the whole Linda Blair exorcist type. Right. I don't believe in the theory that there are no such thing as ghosts, they're all demons. But I think I think both either arguments are fair, to say that demons are involved in everything, or that no, they're not involved in everything. And some people are kind of, surprised for someone who, quote unquote, has been doing this for 16 years to sound so unsure, but it's because I'm trying to stay honest. How the hell do I know? That's kind of my stance, is you just never know.
Well, Ryan, let's take a break from the paranormal for a minute and have a little bit of fun. There are a lot of fans out there. Don't be afraid. There are a lot of fans out there that want to know more about you. So, what's your favorite color?
It's been blue for the longest time, but I've actually been leaning more towards purple. It's the color for pancreatic cancer awareness. And I have been, like today actually, I wore a purple button-up shirt, so I would say right now it's purple.
What's your favorite meal to eat?
God. I'm an Italian boy, so I would say my ultimate favorite meal is some sort of like Alfredo pasta, like linguine. I love that stuff. I can't eat it much, but
you're right.
I love it. I try to sneak it by whenever I can.
Good old Italian boy. What do you like to do on your downtime?
I don't watch ghost shows or movies, that's for sure. A lot of people are surprised that I'm not glued to the TV, and it's no disrespect. I'm doing it. I don't expect any other researcher out there to sit there and be a diehard Paranormal State fan. I do try to. I'm aware of the shows, obviously when Ghost Hunters came out, we were all cheering and rooting for them because it was a major step, but I have maybe seen a total of 2 episodes. So I don't do that. I love film. I love to write. I love spontaneity. I honestly do a lot of goofy things. I make a lot of weird home videos. I think some people think it borders between Andy Warhol insane and or plastic. So.
All right. And last, if Captain America and the Power Rangers were to go head-to-head in a battle, who would win?
Oh, boy. I'm writing, it's been a dream, I'm writing the new Power Rangers comic book.
Yes.
But, God, that is so hard. I would like to believe that they would solve their damn differences. But if you go by the canon, I don't know. I mean, the Power Rangers have these big, monstrous machines that could just step on Captain America. I think
but it's Captain America. Come on.
I think Captain America is much more of a powerful and potent figure. I would root for him because he's one guy instead of 6. But to be fair, I mean, 6 Power Rangers with a bunch of other stuff would probably kick his butt. But I think ultimately he would win.
Aww. Lucy, you there?
Hello?
I think I lost Lucy again. All right.
Hello.
Go ahead, Lucy.
Well, you know what, Ryan? I just really have to ask this question, and I really hope that you don't mind. What has been the most disturbing, frightening experience in the paranormal that you've had to endure? Maybe something that even made you question whether or not to continue in the field.
My first official demonic case with the Catholic Church that brought in, it involved the Pittsburgh Diocese with then Bishop Buell, who's now Archbishop or a Cardinal of the D.C. area. We were brought in to consult on a demonic case that actually was approved. One of the few officially sanctioned exorcisms in recent time. I was 22 at the time. That I was weighing over my head. I tried to stay strong for the clients, and I'm happy to say that they're doing very well. In fact, there's a book coming out about that case, and even a movie in the works. I would say that one. That I've since dealt with worse, but I will never forget just how traumatic that was, and for the rest of my team. There were 7 other investigators. We will never forget it.
Well, is there a life lesson or advice that you can share with our listeners who are doing what you're doing in the paranormal field that you wished someone would have told you earlier on in your quest for
Hello?
answers? Hello, Ryan?
Yep, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay. Is there a life lesson or advice that you can share with our listeners who are doing what you are doing right now in the paranormal field that you wish...
Is there a life lesson or advice to share to listeners?
Yeah, that maybe you wish someone would have told you earlier on in your quest.
Yeah. Feeling alone or frustrated is all part of the journey. The journey is more important than the end or the start. So it is okay to doubt. It is okay to be frustrated. It is okay to feel like you are alone sometimes. You know, everyone in their own way is, but you're not alone forever. And it is okay to be angry sometimes, and it is okay to be frustrated that you're not getting the answers. You know, you're not going to go and do one investigation and get all your answers. You can investigate for 30 freaking years. Like I said, you'll finally learn truths about yourself and what you were meant to discover, but it's okay to understand that you may never know, and again, that's part of, I think, what drives us. I think ultimately, some of us, we really don't want to know. We don't ultimately really want to know.
Well, Ryan, what's next? What's next for Ryan Buell? Besides the show and the book and the events, is there anything that you haven't done that you want to start?
Well, I'm doing comic books now, which is, it's just fun. It's something I'm excited to do. I'm actually working on, we started developing, but I had to step back, but I'm actually developing my first fictional series, which there's a very major cable network that is very interested in, and you know, there's no guarantees. Sometimes they'll buy the rights and we'll never see the light of day. Even Spielberg can't get everything greenlit, but I am very excited for that. You know, so I'd say fiction writing and moving into, you know, storytelling in that aspect. And obviously I'm going to be bringing, you know, the real life stuff along with me along the way. So yeah. And of course trying to, you know, kick this disease's ass and move forward.
We know you're actually celebrating the 12th anniversary of PRS on September 15th. What's that about? I mean, I think the tickets have already been sold out, correct?
Yeah, it's sold out. We opened up a few more slots, but it's pretty much it is sold out. We're able to fit a few more people. We more than exceeded the amount we were hoping for. We have nearly 100 people coming. And, you know, more recently we've been wanting smaller crowds. I mean, we've been capping our events at like 30 just because, you know, in all honesty, crowds, I just can't do what I used to do, where I could, you know, sign autographs for 500 people or sit down and give everyone at least some form of attention that I would like to give them. So with this event, what's so important about it is, you know, I haven't seen a lot of my associates for so long because of treatment and my health. We stayed in touch over the phone, but I haven't seen Chip Coffey in a few years. I haven't seen Father Bob Bailey in a few years. I've seen Michelle, but we all have not been together, and there's also quite a few more people who are making surprise appearances. So it's really a reunion, and they're all excited. We're all excited to see each other, and it's kind of like getting the gang back. Unfortunately, not everyone I wish to attend can, but it's kind of marking the beginning of a new chapter for us, which finally, you know, you can say you're going to open up a new chapter a million times, but, you know, you'll know in your gut when it's actually true. And I can't wait to do this. And we wanted, at first we were talking about having it private or invite only, and we said, you know, no. These support, and when I was doing my interview with People magazine, I told them the story about how the fans literally at one point kept me going when I saw something they did. And so we wanted to bring them in, you know, as many as we could fit. So it's a reunion. When they see me on stage seeing Chip, I mean, that's going to be the first time I'll have seen Chip in years. When they see all of us together, everyone's flying in that day. We will literally be all together for the first time, and that means the world to me. And then obviously we're all going to be working together on the new show project, but you know that, you know, filming isn't here just yet, so we are physically all now getting together for the first time in a long time.
That's nice.
It's a wonderful thing. It's an absolutely wonderful thing.
It's things like that mean the most. So.
Good. Well, you know what, Ryan? Where can people go to learn more about you and what you're doing?
They can go to paranormalresearchsociety.org. We're actually about to unload a ton of new stuff on there. We have a new social type media project that we've been working on called the Purist Bureau. We are finally releasing the movie we did on DVD, which actually is going to be released in 2 weeks, called American Ghost Hunter. So they can learn about that. They can pre-order it still, or they can go straight to that website at aghthemovie.com. But all of it's at paranormalresearchsociety.org.
Well, that's great, Ryan. It has been a wonderful night talking with you, and we really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. We really do wish you and the team the best of luck, the best of health, and the best of spirits to you.
Guys, thank you very much. This was my first interview in a very long time, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate the questions, the support to everyone listening. It means a lot. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. God bless you.
God bless you all. Good night.
Good night, Ryan. Are you there, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm here.
What's going on with your phone tonight?
I don't know. It just keeps going in and out. And, I really feel bad because there's so much that I am just so impressed right now. I really am just so impressed by his spirit, by his sincerity. I mean, Ryan is just absolutely brave. Everything that he's gone through, everything that he's brought to the paranormal community. I mean, I think he's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Well, I mentioned it before. It's not just the paranormal that he teaches us. He's taught us life lessons. Taking taking in everything that he has gone through in his life as a child and growing up, forming, as I mentioned before, forming his the group at Penn State and PRS, and having to deal with things growing up as a child, and then going through the paranormal and dealing with what he has dealt with. I mean, you've all seen it on television, all of the things. And by the way, excuse me for my nasal voice tonight. I have a cold, so I sound very different tonight. But, with all of those things, it's not, and his health, it's not just what he's taught us about paranormal. It's about how he has dealt with life and how he's able to pursue life and continue to do what he loves, what he's passionate about. And I think there are a lot of people out there who would have been beaten over the head with the sickness that he has been selected to deal with. I think they would have completely stopped in their tracks and been a complete hermit. I mean, he calls himself a hermit, but I mean, he's far from being a hermit. Look at all the work that he's been doing as he's been a hermit, getting things ready for stuff for next year and this event that's coming up September 15th. I mean, it's not something that you can do overnight. These things take time and energy. And to be able to deal with what he's been dealing with, I think he's a remarkable human being. I think he is an inspiration to a lot of people. And when we first started to promote the show tonight, we received many comments and many messages from people saying, "Oh, well, he's fake. The show is fake. This whole thing about the I am sick thing is fake, and all that other stuff." I think it's all been beaten to death.
Right.
We could have easily asked those questions about it, but I'm not really interested in it. And if people are out there are so bent to find out things or to have him keep repeating it over and over again, about the incident, about things that people are questioning and having to validate it all the time, it gets tiring. I mean, he even mentioned it himself. There are detractors in all sorts of life, in all groups. If you continue to spend your energy to try and convince people who will never be convinced, you're just wasting your energy. Talk to the people and be with the people that are like-minded, that know you. If there are folks out there that just do not believe in what you are doing or don't believe in what you perceive as the paranormal and try to beat you down, walk away, turn around. It's not worth it to constantly keep having to validate yourself, because you're not getting anywhere. You're not stepping forward. All you're doing is standing in one spot and having to fight a battle. Turn around and walk away and keep moving forward.
Well, you know what? I think just listening to Ryan tonight, the questions about, whether or not something was faked or not, I think he answered all those questions in a roundabout way. Just his honesty, just his answers. After talking to him, I have no doubts about whether or not something was faked or not. Here we have a person who literally is searching for his own answers. And it just so happens that, of course, they put it on television, and you've mentioned it to me before, there's always going to be haters. There's always going to be someone that doesn't believe. Ryan mentioned it himself. You have to find your own truth. He was searching for his own answers. And what they presented in Paranormal State is what they found. Whether or not people believe it or not, you can't keep beating that same drum over and over. I think his honesty, I think the fact that he is willing to talk about everything, it just says what a person he is. And I have no doubt that he's an honest person, and what we're seeing is his search. It really is.
He's a human being just like everyone else, He believes what he believes. He doesn't profess to have the answers to everything. He even mentioned himself, which I loved his phrase, that he says it's not a weakness to say that we just don't know the answers. It's not being weak if you say that, There are people out there who claim to have the answers to everything, and to be honest, I feel sorry for people that have to profess that. I don't, and I know you don't, have the answers to everything. We don't have the answers. Every time we get an answer or come close to an answer on something, there's always about 15 more questions that come with it. So in my world, when I'm dealing with the paranormal, every time we're out on an investigation, or not even that, even just talking to people, there are things that came out tonight in talking with Ryan that, sort of validated and solidified a lot of the beliefs that I had, but also brought up a lot more questions. So it's a never, that, what was that, in that 80s movie, that never-ending story. It is just a never-ending story. It just will continue to go forward, and I've said it 100 million times, the only way that we're really going to find the answer is when we cross over. That's the only way that we're going to get that true definitive answer on things, is when we cross over. I don't think the other side, the afterlife, will reveal itself to the human forms.
Well, the one thing that really struck me tonight is just the thought of having to deal with the thought of your own mortality. Here we have a human being who, in the prime of his life has been dealt a card where he has to think about his mortality. He has to think about what possibly is. We search for the answers, but now all of a sudden it's a little different for him. Now he is actually looking at his own very possible journey to the other side. And I'm sorry, he has to be one of the bravest people that I've ever spoken to deal with that and to continue to go on. Like you said, what he's gone through probably would have knocked other people down. They would have given up. They would have stopped dead in their tracks. Here's a human being that hasn't stopped. he continues to move forward. And I think every single person can learn something from him. I know I have.
Wait, one of the questions that I know, Lucy, you received from people who were asking us to ask Ryan during the interview was how the paranormal sort of has been commingled with his health. You know, you mentioned it to me, and I was a little trepidatious about asking that question because I know it could be, it can piss people off. It's sort of blaming the paranormal, and that's the last thing that anybody wants to do. But he answered it. I didn't even have to ask that question. He brought it up and said, you know, at first, when he's been asked that question, at first he was a little, you know, pissed off, he said, about answering it. And I don't think he knew how at that point to answer it. But again, he says that, you know, he doesn't have an answer for it. He doesn't know. Maybe it could be. It could have been something within the paranormal in any of the demonic cases that he's been in or any of the hauntings that he's been around, any of the cases that he has gone through in the last, you know, what was it, 15 years, 12 years, that could have attached themselves to him or could have affected something within his health. I mean, you hear all the stories all the time about people in the paranormal getting lung cancer and a lot of these other debilitating diseases and have died, and some have blamed paranormal investigating and ghost hunting for doing it. Now, there are logistical reasons for some of them, you know, because of the locations that you go to can be hazardous. You know, there are hazardous abandoned locations that you're going to. You're breathing in toxic fumes, you're breathing in asbestos, and if you do it for a long period of time, of course, that's going to have some sort of health effect on you. But what we're talking about here is more so of a spirit interaction, of a entity interaction with your health, causing things of this nature, causing debilitating diseases. And, you know, you can't answer that yes or no, because we don't have the answers to anything within the paranormal. So it's still another question that, you know, I'm sure he's fighting with, and he's probably, you know, questioned himself in his mind. How do you feel about that, Lucy? Do you feel that we can be affected? I mean, I'm sure you have your theories on the paranormal and how they affect your health mentally and physically. But do you think there could be a link to the paranormal and some medical health issues?
You know what? I think in some cases, maybe, but you got to look at the whole picture. You have to look at the whole thing. I mean, there's other factors that you have to take into account. You have to take in medical history. I mean, if a person goes in and they become a paranormal investigator, do they have a medical history where there's a possibility of a disease coming through? I think a lot of people in the paranormal are so focused on the negative and the dark that everybody wants to blame everything on a demon, and they want to blame everything on something dark. But there's so many other factors that can go into someone getting a disease. You know, I will agree that, you know, when you do investigate, your energy can be drained. You know, there are things that happen to us. I mean, I've felt it, you've felt it, everyone's felt it. But is that something that's really going to truly cause you to get a disease such as cancer? I can't subscribe to that. I really can't, because I really still believe that there are other factors that go into that. I mean, how is it that one person gets cancer and another one? I mean, you know, it happens to everyone, not just paranormal investigators. So I'm very skeptical about, you know, people getting some kind of disease or getting an illness from investigating. Yes, I do know that you can be harmed by things, but I'm very skeptical about the whole idea that you can get a disease from a demon.
Well, I think there are a lot of cases out there that we've all heard about and read about, and even on television, the Dead Files. I can't even count how many times that we've heard stories on that show that, the children of the family, or even, the parents themselves or other members in the family that are living in the home have a sickness that has been going on ever since they moved in the home. Lucy? I mean, there's so many of those stories that happen where they found that it sort of mimicked the illness of the deceased. And could that be what is happening to people? I mean, I may be going off on on a limb here and really doing a broad stroke to this idea, to this theory about how the paranormal can affect you physically as well as mentally. But I think it's still a question that everyone has, and I think everyone needs to, prior to getting into the paranormal, you really should do a checkup. You really should do some sort of checkup. Go to the doctors and get a checkup. Make sure that you evaluate yourself to make sure that before doing anything, and you should do it even periodically throughout your paranormal career, to get checkups like that, so that if there's anything, you can catch it early. And it's not only the spiritual effect, it's also the hazardous locations that you're going into that you don't know, how it's affecting your lungs and your breathing and your sinuses, or things that you may be touching and it may be entering in your mouth, from lead paint chips or something,
Well, you know what I mean. If you're not in the best of health to begin with, certain things are going to bring on illness. I mean, stress. People that are involved, maybe they have a haunting in the home, or there's some kind of activity. If they're already in not so good health, just stress is going to bring on something. And I really have a problem with saying it's a direct result of whatever spirit or entity is there. It could be the situation. It could be other factors in their life that are bringing on. I mean, just the stress of dealing with a haunting. You don't sleep. You worry. There's fear. Fear can take a person in good health and change everything. So I still want to believe that there are so many other factors than just something from the paranormal that will bring something on.
I have to re-listen to this show tonight because he mentioned that he dropped some hints about his new show. And I'm curious to find out what those hints... You know me, I'm going to analyze this whole thing. I'm going to break this interview apart, and I'm going to do it play-by-play like I'm listening to an EVP. But I'm really curious to see what new things... Or maybe it's not new. I mean, how many new things can come out in the paranormal to be televised, But I've always loved his take on Paranormal State. I've always loved the idea, and I don't know if it was you that had mentioned it earlier on, about how his show is Paranormal State is more focused on the voices and the experiences of the individuals, and less on the investigation. But it's more about finding out about the person who is making the claims and getting to the root of how it's affecting them, or possibly even finding out whether or not the paranormal activity is not so much in the home or the location, or is it more so in them, And I loved that take on it, Paranormal State, because I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think I'm past the point of listening to, all the EVPs that people catch or watching the video. Yeah, it's cool. It's great. I really do give confidence and kudos, and I really uplift all the people that are doing it, especially the folks that are on television, because it's getting the awareness out there and it's showing people. It's sort of giving that validation to the paranormal community. I mean, even just last week, my sister told me that she was watching Ghost Adventures, and she's like, "Oh, you got to watch it because I have, we're on the radio during the time." And she goes, "Oh, you got to watch it because they're finding these really cool things, and they really show this really great evidence." She's not so much into the paranormal as I am, but for someone like her to take whatever was given to them as far as evidence, to give them proof, to validate for themselves, I think is great. But I think we're beyond that. I think we have to get into more of the research of it. I think we have to get into more of the people research. I think that's where we may find some more of the answers as far as what the paranormal is all about.
Well, what I really liked when he was talking about, when I asked him about, overlooking things, and how he mentioned, talking to a new investigator, the things that you need to look at, a psychological review of the subject. And one thing I have to say, if you have not read his book, Paranormal State, My Journey into the Unknown, the book really does give you a bigger view of what he really goes into. It is more about the person. It is more about the causes, not so much the activity. I mean, the activity is there, of course. That's what gets the whole investigation started. But when you're looking at the causes, it's not just, the EVPs, or it's not just the shadow person or the apparition that can possibly be there. It really goes into the cause, the why. Why is this happening? You have to look at everything, and I really do feel that his book gives you such a good insight into what he puts into his investigation. And I honestly believe that I learned something from it, and I think everybody can. I mean, we, like you said before, we don't have all the answers. We're still learning. Every question that we put out, we probably get about 3 more questions from it.
He was the first person that normally when we have guests on the show and we've asked them to, give us and our listeners advice on the paranormal, some things that people have been taught through the many years or the little years that they've been in the paranormal. You can be taught a lesson being in the paranormal field for only one day. And we've asked that question of our guests, what's some of the life lessons, or what's one piece of advice that you can give our listeners who are in the paranormal that maybe they wish that they would have received that bit of information earlier on that may have helped them. And he was the first person to say, know that you're not alone. Know that you're not alone in the paranormal field, or that you're not alone in the quest to find answers. There are many people, and, he mentioned this before, no pun intended, there are many people who are closeted paranormal. They are not public about it. They are afraid of scrutiny. They are afraid of being mocked or shamed from their family or friends. And they believe in this stuff. I find it all the time, because there are many people who I never knew were interested in paranormal. But once they find out that this is what I do, and they find that out, they go, "Oh my God, I got to tell you a story. I got to tell you this," And I would have never have thought that, because there's been no inkling of it, of all the years that I've known them. And so there are people out there that you don't realize that are sharing that same experience along with you, whether it be a frightening experience or a good experience. There are other people out there just like you, and you should not feel alone. And I like that piece of advice that he gave.
Well, what I really liked is the fact that he said that we have to stop the infighting. We have to stop arguing with each other and the disagreements, and it's nice to hear, but then again, it's not nice to hear that there's disagreements within his own organization. It happens all across the board, and no one person knows more than the other. No one person. Your evidence isn't the end-all, tell-all, but it is your evidence, and your truth is your own truth. And I think Ryan touched on that. I mean, I'm so honored that he did talk to us. I mean, it's obvious he still sounds weak. But I really think what he shared with us tonight was absolutely wonderful. I think everybody can take something from it, and I am so grateful that he took the time to speak with us and our listeners.
Well, Lucy, I'm going to do something a little bit different right now because we have some time to play with.
Okay.
And in the spirit of Ryan and the interview that we just had with him, I'm going to ask everybody, because we have a good amount of people in chat. For those of you that are in chat right now, I'm going to pose the question to you guys. If there is a bit of life lesson or advice that you guys have that you can share with everyone else in the chat room right now that you've learned, that maybe it was something that somebody would have told you, maybe if it was prior to getting into the paranormal or prior to ever doing a residential investigation or doing an abandoned location investigation or anything within the paranormal, is there one piece of advice that you can share? I'd love for you guys to post it in chat, because I think everyone else that's in chat right now it would be a great service and a great advantage to everyone who's listening right now in chat to pick up some of that advice, because the great minds are not the Albert Einsteins and the Thomas Jeffersons, like I mentioned in my intro earlier. It's you. It's the regular, Jane Does and John Does that are within the paranormal, the normal human beings that we are, is where we get most of the education from. So if there's anything that you guys have that you want to share, feel free to share it in the chat room. And Lucy, I see that calls have been dropped. I don't know what's going on. Are you still on the air? Okay, Lucy is not on the air with me. I don't know what's going on with her phone. But, so if you guys can mention some piece of advice in chat.
I'm here.
Okay. That you can share with everybody. I think we would greatly appreciate it, and I think everybody in chat would really greatly appreciate it. So go ahead. If there's anything that you want to share with anybody in the chat room, please type it away now. But Lucy, while people are doing that, I'm going to ask you the same question. You've been in the paranormal field, if not the same, maybe a little bit longer. Is there any advice that you may have? I see it. I see it in the chat room, and it's Paradigm Shift Paranormal. Trust your gut instinct. That is the one thing that I have learned in doing this in the paranormal, and it's spread out to the rest of my life, is that you need to trust your gut instinct. You need to trust your own feelings. You need to trust what you are sensing, what your awareness is, and you have to trust yourself. Trust what your feelings are. I really think that's really important. It's not what you think you should be seeing. It's not what you want to see. You have to trust what's in your gut. I think that's the most important thing that I've learned. Did you start off in the paranormal not having that feeling and learned it along the way?
I think I was very wary of it. I don't think I did trust myself in the beginning, because I think I went in, like Ryan said, I wanted to believe so much. I wanted to see something, and it was almost like I was going to will myself to experience. But as we've gone along, that's not how it is. I mean, the paranormal doesn't perform on command.
I think for myself, it's something that I'm actually going through now, and this is something that I can share with everybody as far as advice, is to keep an open mind about things. Lucy, you know me. I'm sort of like Ryan. I'm a little hard-headed. I'm a little bit stubborn. A little bit of controlling. I'll admit it. But I
and
was
humble. Don't forget humble.
Oh, don't start with me with humble. But as much as I said growing up, because I've loved the paranormal world ever since I was young. I mean, my first books I remember when I was preteen was about UFOs, and it was Whitley Strieber, his books. And so I've always loved the paranormal, and I've always said to myself and to other people, I'm open-minded. If I believe in this stuff and this intrigues me enough to learn more about it, obviously I'm open-minded. But it shocked me when I started to really get heavily into the paranormal and start to do much more research than I did before, especially even with this radio 2 years ago. But not only that, being an investigator for a little over 3 years now, what I thought was being open-minded really wasn't. And it wasn't so much the stubbornness that was keeping it. It was the lack of releasing it. It was that control thing. I'm always the person that has to be in control of my life. I have to have things planned out. That's just the nature of me. Good or bad, that's the way that I am. But I'm learning, and I have learned within the paranormal field and doing what we've been doing for so long, was that I'm able to drop more of the walls that I have and to be open a lot more. And it's funny because where I thought I was getting the learning experience before and the education from the research and the investigating that I was doing before, I'd say maybe before about a year and a half ago. That's how new this is. You can call me a newbie then. But maybe it was about a year and a half ago, that's when I started to really remove the walls and to really see the paranormal for what it is, whatever that is, for the paranormal for what it is. And what it is, I don't know. But I'm seeing insights. I'm seeing little blips of information that I wasn't able to get before. And I think it's because of the experiences that I've had, especially interaction with spirits and all the things that have happened to me. I've been attacked by a spirit. I've got scratches. I've gone through things. I've had faces in my face who did not want me in a certain location. I've seen them, and it's made me humble, Lucy. It's made me realize that, and I'm not sure, maybe it was Susan before or Sharon that had mentioned this, about not being so cocky. I thought I knew the answers, or I thought I knew I could get the answers, and I thought I knew the way to get the answers, but something smacked me down, and I'm thankful for that, because it sort of wiped the slate clean for me, and I'm able to start to write new. I'm start to see things in a new way. And I think one of the reasons why one of the effects of that is this whole thing that now I'm sort of seeing things. The visions that I talked to you about, Lucy.
Yeah.
Not so much about what happens in the future. I still cannot get that concept. But there are things that I've been envisioning that have come true. And so I think it's because something is making me mentally lower those inhibitions, lower those walls. And I think that's the advice that I'd love to give people. I mean, I don't know how to get there. It happened to me, and I don't know how it all happened. I think it's something that you'll learn. But I think maybe it's don't think that you know everything. Don't think that you're going to find the answer. Be weak, as Ryan said, and say that you just don't know the answers. And maybe one day the answers then will come to you.
No, that's beautiful. I will have to say one thing. I've learned from you. And one of the things that I have learned from you is to have that control. You know me. I'm the ADD kid, you know. I mean, I go into a location and I open up completely and I let everything in. And
you want things to happen within the first 15 minutes. You're so anxious, and you want it to happen. I mean, not so much literally like that, but you've got so much excitement that you want it to happen right away.
Right. But I've learned control from you. I've learned to pace myself. I've learned to not expect it and just let it happen. I think that's one other lesson that I've learned both from the paranormal and from you, that I need to pace myself. I need to let it just happen instead of saying, oh, yeah, it's going to happen. I'm going to see something. And that's not exactly how it is. It really is an awareness. And with that awareness has to come patience. I've learned patience from you. Maybe not a whole lot, but I've learned it.
I don't know if you're there yet, because I always call you the 5-year-old kid.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I don't know. There's just so much that I think that I've learned from the paranormal, and I love watching you lower those walls and to open up to the other things. Like I said, I always have said you've got the gift, and it's there, and it's so exciting to watch you learn about it. And I don't know if you'll ever be totally accepting of it, but I see you moving towards it. I really do see you're more accepting of it than you were a year ago.
I mean, I acknowledge it. You know, I've opened the door and I see it standing there wanting to come in, but I haven't invited it to come in yet. I mean, as of right now, I don't think I will. I don't know. My again, it may be because of that controlling thing, and this is something that I cannot control, that I cannot understand it, and so if I can't understand it, I won't let it in.
See, you know where I'm the opposite. I like to be taken away with the flow. I enjoy that. It's like that roller coaster. It's like, you know, you get on and you just go with it wherever it is, and that's where I'm at. I mean, that's the 5-year-old.
But it's funny because I can't conceive of the paranormal either. I can't conceive of the afterlife. Yes, I do believe in it. Yes, I talk to spirits. I know there is an afterlife. I know that there is something else after we die that we go to, or that we are, or that we become. What that is, I don't know. But I know that there is something there. We just don't die and it's darkness forever, for infinity. I know that it's not that. But for my brain to conceive that and believe that is contradictory then to the idea of not believing of what you call gifts, or, you know, whatever it is, for me to accept it. That's what is boggling my mind. That is what I can't understand, is why am I able to do this but not that? I'm open to it. I'm not you know, I'm not closing the door. Like I said, I have the door open. I see, you know, this in front of me. It's at the door. I just haven't invited it in yet. It's there. I just haven't invited it in yet. I'm not closing the door on it. That's not being, you know, it's not being open-minded. I want to be open-minded, and I am. I'm just not yet ready to talk with it.
And that's fine. I mean, there's no timeline on any of this. I mean, everybody comes to their own acceptance in their own time. And for you, of course, there's still that need to control and you know, because it's such an unknown. And you can't control the unknown because you don't know what it is. So I can see where it is with you. But for me, I don't know, maybe because of the way I was raised, I'm so accepting of it. I know it's there. That's why I think it works well when we investigate, because while I'm busy flying around all over the place, you're the one with that foot on the ground and you reel me in. And I think that works perfectly because you still have that, you know, you have to have that explanation. Where me, I'm ready to go with it. I'm ready to take that experience and say, okay, this is what it is. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I see it and I'm enjoying it. Where you still have that foot on the ground and you have to explain it. And I think that's good. That's a good balance.
Well, yeah, it is a good balance, but it's killing me because you're the sponge. You're the sponge in every place that we go to, and it's like, yeah, just like what you said, these spirits will just pick you up and take you away, and it's now my fight to try and grab your leg to pull you back down to the ground. I need a medal. I need an award for this. You need to go buy an award. I want a big plaque with my name on it.
I'm going to buy you a trophy, okay?
Please.
But I thank you. I thank you so much for being my reel that reels me back in, because who knows where I would be. I mean, I don't even remember what it's like to investigate without you. And right now, knowing what I know and knowing about myself, I think I'd be kind of scared to do it, because I don't think I have that trust with very many people. I don't think I have that trust with anyone except you, because I know where you're at, and I know that you're looking for the real answer. And not to say that any answer is either right or wrong, it's just that you have more of a sense of, okay, I really need to understand it. And there's the difference. I will just go with it. I absorb every bit of it. I go into a spot, and the spirits they just come because they know I am the sponge. And I would assume that if you're on the other side and no one's listened to you for a long time, you see somebody that is so willing and open, you're going to go right to it. And who knows? I mean, I don't know, is there a limit? Is there a point where I should stop or pull myself in? And sometimes when I'm in the middle of it, it's just so hard because it's just so much.
Yeah, a psychic had told me years and years and years ago that I was most likely going to get into the legal field, being a paralegal or lawyer or something within the legal field. And I laughed at that then, and I laugh at it now, because I cannot comprehend the idea of fighting for one side. For me, I always like to look at, even when I watch like court TV, or I even watch cases, like the big cases that are on the news a lot, I always look at both sides of, I never make a judgment, number one. But what I do then is I take the stories on both sides, and in my mind, on both sides, I try and make it believable to be truth on both sides. And it racks my brain, because, I mean, there are some cases, obviously, I know, right and wrong and all of that stuff. But when you've got those hard cases where you really don't know, but this side is believable and that side is believable, I'm taking that within the paranormal. There are this theory on the paranormal and this theory on the paranormal. I'm not going to take a side, obviously, because I don't know the answers. To me, they're both believable, and now you've got thrown in a third theory, and a fourth, and a fifth, and 1,000th theory. And to me, all of them are believable. Like even, when was it, last week, I mentioned when we were talking with David Weatherly, that the whole tulpas thing. The whole tulpa is that the idea of a tulpa is that it is something that your mind has conjured up. The energy within you, within your body, and within millions of other people, if they've all thought about one single material thing, say it was a pen, okay? A tulpa is if all of those millions of people were walking into the same location and thinking about a pen and a pen and a pen and a pen and a pen, the millionth and one person that would walk in there would actually visibly see a pen, because of all the energy that that was absorbed from us into that place created this pen. And so, to me, is all the paranormal a tulpa? Is everything because we believe it to be so? How you said to Ryan earlier, that, is it that we want it so badly that we think about it? Is it the idea that we are consciously thinking of the paranormal and putting so much of our energy into it, is that the ghost? Is that the spirits? And so, Lucy, I don't know if you just heard. Did you just hear somebody say "yeah"?
Yeah.
In your ear?
Yes.
You did, right?
Yes.
It was a male voice, right?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I was just going crazy, but I just heard a male voice saying "yeah" in my headphones right now.
Yes.
Anyway, is the paranormal all a tulpa? Is it all something that has been created from us? It's not meaning that it's not real, but has it been all created by us? That's a theory that I think could be true. I don't know. I mean, that's something that could be researched into further. There's so many things that I believe in, and that's why I go crazy within the paranormal, because, again, I'm trying to find the answers.
Well, I don't know if you've looked into it, but remember I mentioned on the Queen Mary, there is an example of that, and it's around the swimming pool where people have seen an apparition of a young girl who supposedly has drowned. But the research into the actual incident, there was never a young girl that drowned there. But yet people go to the Queen Mary and they see a little girl in the pool area. Now, is this a result of everybody believing that there's the ghost of a girl? I mean, she's being seen. I mean, people have seen her. The apparition has been there. But yet there's no actual evidence of a young girl drowning in this pool. So is she how is it that this one apparition is appearing when there's no actual incident, and that as opposed to places where there are apparitions of people who really have passed on? Where does the difference? Where does that line happen?
Right. I mean, there's a ton of questions. I mean, we need a 24-hour, 7 days a week radio show to talk about this. I mean, ongoing, constantly, nonstop. But I think, again, I want to thank Ryan for coming on tonight. I think he was so brave, and it was his first interview over, I think it was 15 months or 14 months.
He hasn't done a paranormal radio show in 15 months, and we were very, very honored to have him. He was very gracious, and I will be truthful. I did track him down when he was in Chicago. He was at Comic-Con, and I went and I asked him, and you know what, being the wonderful person that he is, he agreed to do it. So we are very, very grateful.
All right, Lucy, get on to the fan of the week. Lucy, you there?
Yeah. Ready for the Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week? We've got 3 minutes. Okay. This week, it is Angie Smith of Olaf, Kansas. She likes Skid Row, Waiting for the Fall, who, featuring someone you might know, friend of the show, Brian Kalick, Destination Truth, Ghost Hunters, Paranormal State, Ghost Hunting, Grumpy Cat, and of course she likes Paranormal Review Radio. Congratulations, Angie, and thank you for being a fan.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you want to be a Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week, just like us on Facebook, Paranormal Review Radio.
Well, you know what? What an amazing night this was. How great to talk to someone who truly has found his calling, and to see how he's brought a clear insight to paranormal investigating. A true warrior in his own right, Ryan brings inspiration to many to face the challenges that we come up against in our own lives. We want to thank Ryan for taking the time out of his busy schedule to speak with all of us. So let's talk about challenges. We go through our lives on this plane, and we face obstacles daily. Most of us look to a higher power to give us strength and resolution to what we encounter. But what if you don't believe in a higher power? What happens then? What if we feel that this is it, there's nothing else? Howard Storm had a near-death experience in 1985, a professor at Northern Kentucky University. He admits he wasn't a pleasant man. He considered all belief systems associated with religion to be fantasies for people who deceived themselves. Beyond what science said, there was nothing else. What Howard experienced changed his life forever. Howard is an artist and the author of a book called My Descent into Death, and he'll be joining us next Friday night to talk about what changed him. What can change a professed atheist to a believer? Be here next week to find out what this believer has to say. We want to thank you, all of you, to our listeners, both old and new. The Paranormal Review Radio family is stronger than ever. Thank you, Anthony, for being the best co-host in the world. So, until next week, all of you paranormal warriors, keep on fighting the good fight and have a paranormal week. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Paranormal Review Radio.